Hey folks, everything new under the sun. Thank you for your patience and the comments. I was taking some family time away last couple of days and it was much needed, and I suggest you all do that. Take the time to enjoy God's creation and relationships and family, and take time to settle down and not be worried about the things that are coming, because the Lord is going to take care of you, and that's exactly what the Bible says. It says not to be worried about tomorrow, the next day, all the things that are going to happen. It's enough to worry about today and the things that are going to come upon you today. So pray to the Lord for faith, and for providing for you, and He will take care of you as a good father does his children. Now, the children don't always think that He's taking care of them like they would like to be taken care of, but He's taking care of you. He will provide what you need. All right, into some of the news today. What you're looking at is some CCD cameras. Now, these happen to be dummy security cameras, and I'm just going to put it out there. There are things that you can do to limit property theft, and one of them is by using dummy cameras. Now, not every thief is going to be fooled by this, but if this fools 10% of the thieves or the people coming on your property, that's a good start. And also back this up with a couple real cameras, which are more expensive, of course, so you can have a couple of those around. And I definitely have real cameras on my property. But you might consider this as well, because and this has a flashing light. Just the indicator, it actually comes with stickers too, as you see at the bottom left corner. Just the indication or the suggestion that there might be some recording going on would turn around many people who are just looking for a quick, theft, a quick, cheap thing to steal from your property. They're not really interested in getting, they're going to go to an easy target, is what I'm saying, basically. If you put any impasse or roadblock in the way, thieves will often just say, you know what, this is a bit too hard. I'm going to go to an easier target, and they'll go to your neighbor's house down the road, which happens to be easier. Now, that maybe doesn't sound right for your neighbor, but you got to do what you got to do, and you can't tell your neighbor what to do. So make your house, at least at minimum, appear more secure and be more secure. I did a video on kind of the deadbolt for your front door. In my case, my back door, which wasn't a deadbolt at all, but just a locking mechanism on the inside that cannot be opened without absolute brute force. And so that's just one more thing where you frustrate the thief, and they just say, you know what, this is too hard. This is going to make too much noise. I'm going to go to the next house. Hopefully, it's a little bit easier. And so they move along. So lights, motion-activated lights are excellent home security. Fake security cams, these have flashing lights on them. That's going to turn away some thieves. Real cameras, just in case someone doesn't care about cameras, and there are some that wave to cameras, but so that you have video evidence so that you can send to your insurance company at the very least, in the case where they steal something, and hopefully there's no home invasion. All right, I just wanted to show you that to you, but these are pretty cheap. You can get a 4-pack for, I think, $40 Canadian, and it's similar to putting a sticker on your door that says, beware of dog on the property. And that actually works too, by the way. Get a beware of dog sign. And if they have any indication that there's going to be a dog barking, boy, they will turn around quite quickly. Most of these are criminals have no interest in meeting up with a dog or even having to deal with the barking of a dog, because then everybody's going to wake up and be alerted to what's going on. So they have no interest in that. On to the news. This is Zero Hedge. Kremlin, the U.S. just confessed to imminent war crimes in Ukraine. Now, this is on the news that cluster munitions will be going to Ukraine. It appears that the U.S. is out of standard munitions. Now, some have said, well, they're getting rid of their old munitions, stuff they don't really use anymore, outdated stuff, maybe expired stuff they're sending to the Ukraine, all the old stock. And this is kind of the last of the old stock, which they were holding back, but now they're sending to them because they don't want to send their high-tech weaponry But I think it gives you another a side of it that, in fact, maybe they are using up their old stock. That still a bad situation, because what if we get into World War III, all NATO nations, and we use up all our high-tech weapons? We're going to have to fall back to our old stock of weapons, right? We're going to be using whatever we can if the war isn't going well. So, folks, to give away your old weapons doesn't make a lot of sense. That is probably bad planning, and Ukraine is going through a lot of them. Not only that, but they're suggesting war crimes by providing cluster munitions, which can be picked up by small children, have a high failure rate. So they land and they haven't exploded, and then there's the land is basically mined until someone steps on these or picks one up or throws one or disturbs one, and then it explodes and kills somebody. So it's something that many countries of the world have banned, effectively, Canada included in that. So is the United States the good actor in this Ukraine-Russia war? Boy, you got to start looking at this and saying, you know what, they're no better than anybody else on the playing field. Ceaseless escalation. RFK slams Biden for sending cluster bombs to the Ukraine. Again, there's no talk of peace. Have you heard of Biden say, you know what, let's talk at the peace table. Let's try and come up with some agreement which preserves Ukrainian sovereignty. Let's talk to Putin. Let's just have a discussion about exactly what Putin's motives are, and maybe we can come to a deal. Maybe a pause on the timeline of getting Ukraine into NATO for 10 years, 15 years, whatever it may be. There is no interest by the United States to stop this war. And the question you have to ask is, why? And likely money is a part of it. There is big money. People are making a lot of money in this war. And also, it's an existential threat to the U.S. dollar as the world reserve currency. So the U.S. as a nation, at least they'll argue, is at threat here if NATO, and that being the United States, because NATO kind of backs up the U.S. by using U.S. dollars, that's a threat to U.S. sovereignty and U.S. world reserve currency. If the U.S. doesn't have the world reserve currency, they cannot keep printing money out of thin air. Currently, they're the only country in the world that can print money out of thin air because everybody else uses U.S. dollars, and so they can do as much as they want. Other countries can't do that. Did you know that? So this is aljameter.com. Ukraine, again, talking about, who are the good actors and bad actors in this situation. Israeli envoy, Ukraine supports 90% of anti-Israeli decisions at the UN. So Ukraine is not, this Western bastion of democracy. They seem to have no interest in supporting Israel's right to exist as a country. So if they don't care about Israel's right to exist as a country, why should Israel care about Ukraine's right to exist as a country? You see where this is going? And Israel is a democratically elected society. Did you know that Ukraine is not a democratic elected society at this point? Because Zelensky came out and said there's going to be no more elections until this war is over. This war has been going over for, a year and 6 months, more than that. And now it's effectively a dictatorship, a wartime dictatorship. So I don't know. And Israel, of course, has other reasons for not getting involved. Of course, they don't want to cause the hook in the jaw to Russia in Ezekiel 38 and 39, who, at some point is going to march in Israel to take money, to take spoil, to take livestock, food, all these things. Right now, Israel has a good deal with Russia in Syria, where Israel can attack Iranian proxies, and Russia will not activate its air defense systems. So Israel has a lot of reasons, offensively, defensively, to not send any weapons or help Ukraine. And just one more thing on the table is that Ukraine doesn't support Israel. So why would you support a nation that doesn't support Israel? And Ukraine is not even a NATO nation, so there's no obligation by Israel. This one is from israeltoday.co.il. How Israeli Air Force is preparing for a multi-arena war. Now, you talk about the wars in Psalm 83, and there's this inner circle of nations that is taken out first, and then an outer ring of nations. And it basically describes a time, so as does Ezekiel 38 and 39, when Israel has to deal with not one, but many nations. And that's what the 67 war was. Egypt and other nations attempting to march on Israel. And that was a miraculous event where Israel overcame that because I believe God's going to allow them to stay in the land until he returns at this point. But this multi-arena war really describes Psalm 83 and Ezekiel 38, where Israel is going to war against multiple nations and multiple all at the same time. No other nation, well, not many nations in the world in history have had to deal with consistently having to defend against multiple nations at the same time, and many nations coming against them. But many nations are against Israel. So this is interesting. Think Psalm 83 and Ezekiel 38 and 39. Russia, Turkey, Iran alliance coming against Israel in the last days. So this is interesting. Lies and confusion in the last days. What is Satan doing in the last days? Well, he knows his time is short. So there will be lies and confusion and just evil in the last days. And one of his things is to withhold the truth. The devil doesn't like truth, because if he told the truth, I think everybody would worship God. But he likes to put lies in people's minds. So the CDC admits to not including diagnostic codes showing COVID cause on death certificates. So it appears that there is maybe an intent to deceive by the CDC. There's why else would they not put this in actual cases where they actually know what the cause is? Why would they not include that? Well, they didn't want to scare people off from getting the what. So interesting. We just went through a whole lot of confusion and subterfuge, and lies, and just things are completely upside down in the world. And the Bible describes a time when that's coming, and I think we're getting a taste of that, and more is to come. Wait for the next wave of confusion and lies to come down the pipe, whatever the next thing is. Be prepared for it, folks. It was hard to not get sucked into this one, and I think even people who did get the I think they realized that there was a lot of persuasion happening in a negative sense related to this. I think they know better now, but like one of the ministers in the UK says, as it relates to masking, well, they did it once, and people are trained now to wear masks, so they can bring it back on demand as soon as the next avian flu comes or whatever it may be. They can turn on the masking requirement because we're all used to it. We're all indoctrinated to wearing masks, and we certainly are. It's just normal now for us, and so people will comply because they don't have they're not interested in getting into the fight with the police. And I don't know. Well, it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. CBDC, talking about the mark of the beast and implants. This is expose-news.com. So central bank digital currencies are a solution for a problem we don't have, and yet they want to implant it under our skin. So this is the idea of getting some sort of unique human ID or number on people, to where your identity can't be stolen by thieves, i.e. by stealing your wallet, stealing your social insurance number, your card, whatever it may be. If you have it, in a computer chip in your right hand or your forehead, well, it's a lot harder for thieves to steal your identity. They would literally have to cut off your forearm, your hand, pull that chip out, and stick it in their own hand to steal your identity, right? So it's a lot harder once you start implanting things for identity theft. And I think that's what's coming. It says, speaking about universal basic income, Professor Richard Werner, he says, you will get 2,000 euros into your account every month. So that's a universal basic income. The government's going to pay you to sit on your bottom and do nothing and not work. But of course, to run this efficiently, they say, we'll need to use the latest technology. So CBDC will be an implant. They're going to run it off your body, run it off the electricity in your body. It's going to be tiny, and it's going to be easy to produce. And, again, to prevent identity theft, they're going to stick it under your skin. Now, this is an interesting statement. You have to think about CBDCs as a control system or a permit system. This is kind of what they do in China with the social credit system. It's not a currency. It's a control system. Why? Because it's conditional. It's a conditional currency based on you actually getting that permit. So you have to get a government permit effectively to exist, to participate in modern society. And basically, we're already doing that with our driver's licenses. With other licenses that we have, we're getting permission from the government to do things, to move around effectively, unless you want to move around by simply walking. But it says now if you happen to become some kind of critic to the government policy or a critic of central banks, this could be difficult because maybe the bank doesn't want to do business with you or implant. Maybe they want to shut off your account or freeze your account if you're a trucker in the trucker convoy going to Ottawa, because the government of Canada has come out and said you're a threat to society, right? So they'll shut you off if you're a critic of government, right? So the government in power will shut you off in this case, and it will be easy to do so. They won't need to send police to round you up or put you in jail. No, it's easier. They simply freeze your bank account. They shut off your ability to participate in the economy. You won't be able to buy food. You won't be able to pay your mortgage. You won't be able to buy your insurance for your car. You won't be able to get a job because you'll be shut off electronically. Now, what is easier to force people to abide by the law than to prevent you from participating in the economy, by not removing cash, so you can't barter or trade or whatever, removing that ability as much as possible, and limiting your movement. That's going to convince most people to be included in this. And that's actually what I think the mark of the beast when the Antichrist brings it into effect. It's going to be easy to get people to participate in this, because they're going to say, if you don't, you won't be able to have a house or a mortgage or to pay for anything, to buy anything. You won't be able to have a cell phone. So people will readily accept this, folks. All right. This goes along with the Ukraine news. Biden accused of spilling military secret. The idea is that the U.S. is running out of artillery shells in an interview he did on CNN. And I think this is very true. I think the U.S. is, even if they are old, expired munitions, they are still useful, should stuff go sideways, if we are losing the war, because we're going to need something to throw at whoever it is that's against us, right, to defend ourselves. And so I think the U.S. is putting itself in a very bad position in this case, and this could be it could be that Russia is simply wearing us out, and they're in a wartime manufacturing scenario where their manufacturing are going 24/7 to build munitions and tanks and all these things. The United States is simply using munitions right now. They're not creating them as fast as they're using them. So Russia is just wearing down the United States and therefore NATO, using up all its weapons in Ukraine. To a point where, Russia is going to be the leader with all the manufacturing capabilities, along with China, and the U.S. is going to be wiped out in World War III. So it's incredible, folks. I will leave it there for today. That's a lot of talking. Thanks for watching, and thanks for continuing along with me, and we will see you in the next video.